You don't need powers to be a superhero. In fact, you can save lives just through training, discipline, and consistent daily action. But what happens when a hero known for not having any powers suddenly gets superpowers? How does that change him? Does that make him better at his job? Or does that make him different, darker, crueler? His name was Power Man. It was kind of a joke between him and the citizens of his city. He didn't have any superpowers, instead being trained in martial arts, detective skills, and programming, the likes of which the world had never seen. Power Man could prove himself against not only non-superpower criminals, but superpower criminals as well, using his intelligence, wits, and brains to solve everything. There was one villain, though, that ate at him. One villain that he could never quite shake. The Apex. The Apex had superpowers. He could fly. He was super strong, fast. He had laser vision that could burn through buildings. It was a fight every single time Power Man had to fight him, and yet, every time he faced the Apex, Power Man found some way to beat him. Figuring out that Apex's inner ears were calibrated wrong, using that to ground him and throw him into a jail so deep underground that even his super strength couldn't break him out. It started with Power Man's communicator blaring when he was in the middle of a patrol. The Apex had escaped his prison. Power Man knew with the Apex's speed, his power, and his flight that it was only a matter of seconds before the Apex found where he was and attacked. The thing about fighting a super strong, super fast flying target is you only have a first move. You need to predict exactly where and when it's going to be if you want to have the right result. Luckily, Power Man was the best at this. Power Man pressed a button on his suit, easily stepping out of the costume and walking to the other end of the room. He pressed a button electrifying his suit, making it coarse with energy. Kaboom! The Apex smashed through the window and punched the face of what he thought was Power Man, but was really his suit. Electricity coursed through his veins, zapping him and causing him to steam on the ground. Power Man chuckled. He stepped into his suit and pressed God mode onto it. He felt the weight and the strength come as steel divots and technology hummed, turning his normal crime-fighting suit into a superpower fighting weapon. He turned to face Apex, but Apex was already there, smashing through his suit. Power Man tried to adjust settings on his suit, but Apex was stronger, angrier. "Do you have a trick for this?" Apex said. Power Man put his hands up and barely blocked a superpowered punch, but it was too late. The Apex ripped Power Man's super strong suit off and started choking him. Super strong hands choking Power Man. His eyes turned red. "This is the moment where I kill you," the Apex said. "To think that a man would ever..." Power Man spat in the Apex's face. It was such an audacious, disgusting move that the Apex had no choice but to loosen his grip, just a little. Power Man knew his moment when he had it. He kneed the Apex in the stomach, dropping down, grabbing the Apex's cape, using the Master of Momentum to fling him across the building. But it was too late. The Apex was angry now. He had humiliated him in front of the world. The Apex grabbed Power Man. "No more games," the Apex said, and put him in chains. He held Power Man high above the city in his chains for all of the citizens to see. See what happens when a man tries to fight a god? The citizens, who all loved Power Man, watched the Apex hold him in horror. And Power Man's super smart mind tried to run through contingencies. He had a solution, maybe, but it would need time to go into effect, and the chains were restricting his movement. Completely helpless to watch as the Apex looked over his city. "This city is mine now," the Apex said. "The days of Power Man's rule are gone." Power Man struggled to escape, but he wasn't strong enough to escape the chains. "You know how this ends, Apex," Power Man said. "Why don't you save us the trouble and get me out of these chains?" "Wouldn't you like to know that?" Apex said. He injected Power Man with a syringe in his neck. Power Man screamed in pain, wondering, was it poison? Was it something to affect his mind? And the Apex did something so simple but so terrifying. He dropped Power Man from the roof of the building. Power Man fell towards the ground, trying to get his grappler or his glider available, but none of them worked. He fell and fell and fell. The ground rushed towards him. He used a technique that he learned from Buddhist monks to calm his mind. Death was almost certain, but he would fight till his very last second. He kicked off of the building that he was falling off of and started spinning, using the centripetal force to slow himself down slightly as he fell. But then he hit the edge of the building. He should have died from that hit, but he somehow didn't. Power Man was confused. All of his knowledge of human anatomy meant that he should have broken at least one bone, but he didn't. He heard the Apex laughing from high above on the top of the building. There was some trick in that syringe, something that Power Man didn't quite understand. The ground was racing and racing. Power Man used his blades from his gauntlets to slice the chains and grappled towards the building, but the line snapped. He was heavier than he should have been. The momentum was off. He was racing towards the ground. The only chance he had was to break his fall on a car. He tried to angle himself in the air, but then something insane happened. He was floating off the ground, flying. Power Man looked down and then up at the Apex. The Apex was laughing. Now your precious humanity is gone. How does it feel to be the pinnacle of humanity? Power Man didn't know how long these powers would last, but he understood what the Apex was capable of. He would stop him right now. Power Man flew up towards Apex, using his strength and speed. His eyes glowed. He would have heat vision as well, using heat vision to blast the Apex off of his position. The Apex turned around, flying towards him. You may be trained in many things, the Apex said, but my powers are my own. Wrong, Power Man said. He flipped and kicked the Apex with a super strong kick. The Apex whirled around, and Power Man hit a button on his belt, causing a giant sonic blast to knock the Apex out of orbit, sending him wobbling towards the ground. If Power Man had super strength, let's see how he could really test it. He punched the Apex far outside the city limits, using all of his strength. The Apex soared across the way. Power Man would never kill anyone, but he knew how durable the Apex was. He flew after him as fast as he could. As he flew, he felt the strength coursing beneath his veins. He would always tell kids that because he had no superpowers, they could do the same things he could do, but now he truly felt what it was to be superior. As the Apex flew to meet him, his eyes glowing red, he shot heat vision at Power Man. Power Man tried to turn in the air, but his flight was difficult to maneuver. The heat vision hit Power Man's leg, and he spun out towards the ground, landing in a wheat field. The Apex touched down on the ground, chuckling. Doesn't it feel good to be special, Power Man? The Apex said. Now do you understand why humanity is supposed to be our slaves? Apexes like us should be kings in this earth, knowing that all men are not created equal. We're not even men. Men are created to worship us. No, Power Man said, jumping up and flying, combining his martial arts to punch the Apex with everything that he had. The Apex's jaw broke. His eyes glowed. Impossible, the Apex said with a broken jaw as he heat visioned towards Power Man. But Power Man ducked under it, using his combination of martial arts ability and superpowers to do a final kick in the Apex's face, leaving him unconscious in the middle of the field. Power Man floated above the Apex. He felt the power coursing through his veins. And even though he had never killed anyone before, he felt the desire pumping beneath him. The Apex was weak. He had no right to call himself the Apex. Power Man was the Apex. His power was strong, infinite. He raised his fist, ready to punch the Apex so hard he would break every bone in his skull. If the Apex could die, Power Man would kill him. He looked at his fist and down at the Apex. He remembered all the children that looked up at him. He thought about everything that he'd stood for all these years without any superpowers. And now, in this moment, when he had all the power in the world, now was the moment when he wanted to break his one rule of no killing. Power Man started sobbing. He flew away from the Apex, high in the sky, away from the city that he used to call home, up towards the curve of the atmosphere, towards space. If I'm not human, I don't belong on this earth, Power Man thought, looking down at the earth. What would happen the next time the power coursed through his veins? With these abilities, he was special. He couldn't walk among men anymore. He would know. He could destroy cities. The latent power within him was too much. He would have to leave. He could never be human again. As he wanted to fly into space, he stopped himself. All this power, all of this responsibility, and the superpowered villains felt none of the weight of it. Only Power Man. He didn't know how long he was strong like this for. Only he felt the weight of the responsibility. And that is what made him a superhero. Crime in Power Man City became a thing of the past. Power Man's powers never went away. And every time someone saw him flying through the sky, instead of fearing him like they feared the Apex, or thinking him other like Power Man feared, instead they would whisper to each other, "He used to be human, just like us. Look at what a human being can do." And even though Power Man felt the desire to kill deep inside every single day, he pushed it down and kept fighting, kept standing up for what he had believed in before he had any superpowers. The sanctity of life above all else, protecting the innocent at all costs.